Hey TV fans, Bored now, back with you. On this video I will be reviewing Succession Season 4 Episode 8. The episode is called America Decides, so in the end game of the season now and the series overall, 2 more episodes to go after this one. So this is a really strong episode. It's so good and one of the best episodes of the season now, which makes sense considering we're building towards the end. I would say it's out of this episode and a certain episode 3 for the best episode so far of the season, but this is really strong stuff, like just the drama over this election night, and it sums up what Succession does really well as a show and why it is a modern classic for me, and that is the way it can take something which is based on a real life thing. So in this case it's based loosely on the whole Trump election scandal from a couple of years ago, but it still manages to work it into like a very compelling storyline on the show, and it makes it really thrilling and tense and fascinating to watch, where you've got all these different elements going on and all these debates circling and back and forth. It really keeps you guessing. I mean, as crazy as some of the stuff going down in real life, which this is like based on, to watch it like in Succession, like this storyline was much more compelling, much more thrilling, and that's a credit to the writers. And it's easy to forget sometimes, but often the best episodes of this show, they do feel like thrillers, like really edge of your seat thrillers, and that's what this one feels like by the end. Like the pacing of it's like a slow methodical build, but we gradually get into the meat of it, and it's bubbling along nicely anyway, with the snappy dialogue and different things going on. I enjoy a lot of the antics with Tom and how he's trying to hold things together on election night. Him and Greg taking cocaine to try and get through the night is a really choice moment. Probably not the best idea, but you can see how it happens. Just various antics, but we slowly build and build. But also how complex some of this stuff is, like how it's not really black and white. You can see different sides of the argument when it comes to the strategy and things like that. And everything by the end is just on a knife edge, and it's kind of frustrating. Like, by the end, you're really on Shiv's side, and like morally, when they're having this discussion about, like, because she's suggesting a recount, obviously, or like, well, not a recount so much, but then they can do the thing over again, and they're saying, well, how can we do that? And then they're trying to predict that the Republican guy would have won anyway, Manklin, but there's a suggestion that, like, in all likelihood, those burnt votes were more for Democrat than Republicans. But regardless of the case, it's just like the whole morality of it, and it just sets something in motion, like this compelling back and forth. Shiv versus Roman, that's very entertaining, because obviously one's for Democrat and one's for Republican, basically. So I love them snapping back and forth at each other. But it's like, I also think it is like really balanced. Like, I know it's easy to see this as like a liberal type show taking snapshots at like Republicans and show, but like when you watch the debate in the episode and the tension and stuff, like there's definitely a sort of a back and forth and real ongoing discussion about it, and I quite like the guy who's like comes in and he's like a strategist, like a mediator, because he does seem like a guy who's trying to do his job and actually just not really taking a strong side either way. He's just trying to like come up with the best strategy. So I did feel sorry for him. He's the one who Greg ends up like almost blind him with the lemon drink, which is really good. But it just feels like a very like authentic feel for like an election night, and just all the different energies bubbling along. But I was saying about Shiv because it is frustrating how by the end she's kind of her own worst enemy, and that's kind of the trump card where she gets caught in the lie by Kendall, like when because he's considering going with her and saying no, we can't call this yet. So he's considering, because one of his big things in the episode, which is quite emotive, is then because of the stuff going on with his family, he's concerned about like the whole racism issue around the Republican, like the Mencken character, Justin Quark, really well cast, by the way. Like, great bit of casting with him. Because it's funny, like, for a while when they first announced Connor was running, like a while back, I kind of saw him as like a Trump-style figure just because he was so cartoonish and a bit of a joke. But over the episodes, Connor has become a more like sympathetic character than that. And really now we can see who like the Trump-like figure is. It is like this guy Mencken, who by the end of the episode, by hook or by crook, does seem to be on the verge of becoming president. But another thing I like is that Connor, until a very late stage, is still believing he can win. Like him and Willow, she's backing him up, even though Roman's still trying to get him to like concede and still offering bits and bobs elsewhere. And like at one point, Connor's, well, when he finally does concede, he does say, yeah, maybe I'll have a think about that. And then you get his hilarious, like, really cringe-worthy concession speech. But I love the term conheads and how he's still believing. And once again, it's really awkward because it sort of goes from being quite a humble speech, and then he just gives himself a bit too much rope to hang himself, and it does highlight that he is a bit clueless and like gets a bit ahead of himself. So yeah, just things like when he's talking about like bipartisan zombies and about how his own people portraying him and stuff and the media. But this episode once again reinforces then Willow and Connor really do love each other. Like, I think that's something this season has confirmed, and she's right there once again backing him up, saying we've come this far, so let's just see it through. And like, obviously at the point of the night where he concedes, there's no shame, because yeah, it's crystal clear at that point. Because I think there's a scene where like he loses one state and it's like, yeah, chances are I'm not gonna win now. But so that's been really sweet stuff this season with those two, and them deciding to get married back in episode 3 regardless. So, as I said, it all builds to this, and it's sort of frustrating in the end that Shiv kind of like is the orchestra of her own downfall. But Kendall is like a bit more sympathetic in this episode than he has been recently. Like, and one of the things I like is that conversation with him and Shiv where he's like looking for her approval, looking for her support. And this is why the whole turn in episode 3 and the direction the season has taken since is just so perfect and well done, because in this episode, Kendall is suddenly questioning if he is like a good father, and so that lines up quite nicely with the siblings being concerned about like would Logan do this? Like, would father do this? Like, how should we act compared to father? So that's why that scene works so well, where it says, I'm a bad father, and she hugs him and says, no, you're a good father, you're a good man, and just backing him up. But that's like the whole connotations because of the whole link to Logan. So Kendall is a bit more sympathetic in this, even though he's clearly screwed up when it comes to his family. But the signs that he's starting to see is like those mistakes anyway, that at least hits him on a personal level. And there is something kind of darkly funny about him having his own family like followed. But yeah, there's stuff going on in the background with Madsen, like on the phone with Shiv, and with just like different things over the course of the night. But yeah, as I said, it is a little bit like a kick in the teeth when Shiv ends up outdoing herself because she tells that lie about Nate when Kendall is pretty much about to go her way, and you just wonder if she didn't tell that lie, if Kendall didn't like go to Greg and catch her in the lie, then chances are he might have backed Shiv's side. So that was like a smart twist, and it was nicely set up earlier because the scene with Shiv and Greg, I did enjoy. Shiv's really scary in that scene, but I did enjoy like her scaring the shit, or trying to scare the shit out of Greg, and I think she did in that scene, because she warns him not to like screw her over, and like as says, she's got that great line about like keeping his organs on the inside rather than the outside. But you can see Shiv really desperate to hold things together in this episode. So many emotions. You get another really strong scene with Tom. And another good thing about the episode and the writing of the characters is how you really flick back and forth with loyalties, because I remember saying last week I was kind of more on Tom's side in that whole, when they were having that whole argument, even though it was like he said some shitty things as well, like the line about her not being fit to be a mother. But I did think in this one, like, he came off much worse. And once again, I think it's him letting the stress of election night get to him, like just the way he reacts to that in that scene. Because she finally says, I'm pregnant, and he doesn't believe her. All he says is this just a tactic? And he says some really awful things to her in the scene. So that's another clever thing, like the way, like, he just flips things around. And like, certainly this episode, I was like less sympathetic towards him than I was before. But when you get into like the meat of this stuff at the end, Shiv is making some great compelling cases, and you just believe in what she's saying about this is the future of our country at stake, and they're saying we could get some serious legal action on this. And I'd say also Roman, in the last couple of episodes, I've hated him more than I've ever hated him as a character, because like, I think in the past he's mostly just been a bit like spoilt and just immature, and there's been times this season when I've been like quite sympathetic to him, because like the death of the father does seem to have hit him the most. And there's definitely been like moments in this, which again is why the writing's so good, but definitely moments over the season where he has shown like a little bit more humanity in certain scenes, like the stuff with, I think it was Carrie, like after, like in the episode following Logan's death. Like, he did seem a bit more sympathetic, and there's certainly like, I think, one or two scenes with Willow where he was like, I thought he was alright with her, I'd say. But he's an absolute monster in this episode. He is just the worst. Like, the way he's goading Shiv, the way he's like teasing her, the line about, I think it's just because you've just split up with your boyfriend, which, okay, there may be some truth to that, but that was a really awful thing to say in like, and there's a lot more to do with that. Like, Shiv has always been this a little bit more of a moral compass when it comes to these things. But yeah, that was a really dog shit line. But their interactions in this was so good and so back and forth, and like, I think most people watching it would come down clearly on like Shiv's side and say, yeah, like, morally you can't really do this, and there's definitely, as they say, legal implications, and like, what have you just done? Like, if this guy ends up winning, what have we just, which it looks likely, because that was a crucial state, like, but that's, he offers them the deal, like he says to Roman, if you help me, I'll get you, or I'll kibosh the deal, which is what they're now pushing for with Lucas. Like, they've heard the stuff about his, like, figures, and they believe now they can go it alone and kibosh the deal. So, like, Menkel is promising, I'll help you do that. I'll help you shut down the deal, and that's what Roman is pushing for. So things really on the knife edge. But once again, the fallout is so good, because when the guy Manson is giving this really very Trump-like speech, when they're saying, yeah, we're conceding this, like, we're calling this, he is the new president. Just the reactions from someone, just like the dead silence, and the way Kendall, because Kendall is almost like, without saying, it's like, what the fuck have we just done? Like, even, and it's almost, once again, it was so on the knife edge, where, like, if it wasn't for catching Shiv in the lie and finding out about the whole, like, deals with Lucas and the back and forth, then it's like, things could have played out very differently. And again, I think in a way she was her own worst enemy, but you also really feel for her in the scene. And once again, you get a little bit sense of, like, this all being like a boys' club sometime, and a little bit of sexism. But man, it really sucks to be her in that scene. But now, very interesting to see how she bounces back and fires back, because this changes everything. Like, before this, she was on the fence and she was unsure, but now, after the way they've just, like, sandbagged her, she's full speed ahead with Lucas. She's on the phone, says, yeah, release the figures tomorrow and let's fuck them over. And hey, I wouldn't want to be Greg, because she warned him not to screw her, and he did anyway. But we see the end of the episode. Once again, Kendall, it ends with him wanting to see his kids. So again, that's some good stuff with Kendall. And yeah, let's see what happens, because the Republican guy promises Roman, like, they're celebrating over the phone, promises, hey, it's you and me, bro, you and me. But I don't know if they can really trust him as far as they're going to throw them. So let's see what happens with the deal. And yeah, definitely interesting. Like, Shiv is going to have a comeback without a doubt. So let's see what happens now with just 2 episodes to go. Really great episode, though. I think this is up there for the best of the season. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. Look out for my other, like, more recent TV shows, ongoing shows. I'm also doing season 2 of Yellow Jackets on Showtime, so that's another exciting modern show. I'm nearing the end of season 2 of that, so you can catch up on those reviews if you watch that show. Also, me and Rachel do Buffy the Vampire Slayer review, so we're doing, like, season-long reviews. We recently did, like, the season 5 review, which will be up soon, so look out for that. But thanks for listening. Take care, guys. See you again soon.